Have you ever been in a holding pattern in your life? You're waiting on something to happen, but it just seems to be taking so long. In Genesis chapter 15, we see that Abraham is in a similar place. At the beginning of the chapter, he's talking to God about how he and Sarah have no children. He says, I will have no descendants. And remember what God did. God told Abram to go outside, look up, look at the stars, count the stars if you indeed are able. And then God said, so shall be the number of your descendants. What a great promise. Well, that took care of the son that he had been waiting on. But what about the land? God had called Abram and told him that he would give him this promised land. And we're going to see in Genesis today that Abram's asking, you told me you're going to give the land, but in verse 8 he says, how can I know that I will gain possession of it? So here's what God does. He's going to make another promise. And it may seem a little odd to you. That's why I brought some object lessons. God tells Abram, I need you to get a heifer, get a goat, and get a ram. All of them 3 years old. And then I want you to cut them in two. He also mentioned getting a bird, a pigeon, and a dove. So I've got, I have chicken. It's the only bird I have. And he said, I want you to cut these animals in two. And then I want you to put either half of the carcass on either side. You have the cow, the ram, the goat, the birds. And then what God does is he makes a covenant with Abram. This practice of cutting the animals in two was called cutting a covenant. And what two people would do if they were making a covenant together is they would walk between the animals, and it was their way of saying, if either one of us breaks the covenant, then what happened to these animals should happen to us. So this is what God instructs him to do. And so Abram does that very thing. And then the Bible says that as the sun was setting, and as soon as it became dark, all of a sudden, a blazing torch, represented by this candle, a blazing, smoking torch began to pass through the halves of the animals. This represents God himself. God is the one that went between the animals because God is the one who made Abram the promise. And it was God's way of saying, I will keep my promise. This land, all of this land will be yours. We even are given the dimensions of it from the Nile to the Euphrates. All of this will be yours. So what is it you're waiting on? Maybe you are waiting on a child to be born. It is your desire and dream to be a father or to be a mother. For you, maybe it's not land, but it could be related to your business, and you've been waiting on a job, waiting on a child, waiting on a dream, waiting on God to move. Let me leave you with this thought. Our God's not always early, but he's always on time. You could almost call him a just-in-time God. When the children of Israel are stuck at the Red Sea and Pharaoh's army is behind them and all looks lost, just in time, God splits the Red Sea. He wasn't early. He was just in time. When Lazarus died and he's in a tomb, he was there 4 days. Jesus could have healed him before he died. He even waited 4 days of him being in the grave. Just in time, Jesus raised him from the dead. How about Abram and Sarah? God made them a promise. You're going to have all of these descendants, more than the stars in the sky. And 25 years passed, and they still don't have a kid. He even tried to do it his own way by going into his servant Hagar, and Ishmael was born. Finally, we'll see in a few chapters, an angel appears and says, you're going to have a son by next year. And it had been so long, Sarah just laughed. Ha! Believe that when I see it. But Isaac was born, the son of promise. You may be in a place where you feel like laughing out loud. It's been so long, God, I don't think you're going to come through. Trust him. He may not always be early, but he's always just in time. Have a great day in the Lord, and we will see you again tomorrow.